This is another guy that reviews people like me and then refuses to engage directly because he would get absolutely wrecked, which is probably smart on his part. It's better to just make videos. This is TMM. He just makes videos of people, does his little pithy counters, and then when you're like, hey, can we talk, can we have a little back and forth on this, he just doesn't respond. He doesn't care. I'm warning you, this guy is, his voice is the epitome. It's the highest peak of arrogant atheism. Now, I say that knowing that my voice and delivery is the highest peak of arrogant Christianity. So, so I'm just warning you.
This is a guy who thinks that numbers are spooky, woo-woo, non-physical entities that point to God.
Bad faith right off the bat. Totally poisoning the well right off the bat.
This other mathematician.
Is Michael Shermer a midget or what? Dude looks like a Amish midget. I never knew that about Michael Shermer. Look at that little midget head. Look at that guy. Looks like he can't. Looks like he has a staircase into his van. Looks like he. It looks like the studio put a bunch of waters in the lowest shelf of the refrigerator for him. Looks like Stephen Meyer's going to pick him up when he decides to talk to him.
Whose name I'm not going to reveal yet, but can in a year or so when he comes out with a book that we're going to be publishing. He took me aside and said, I love your new book, Return of the God Hypothesis. He said, my wife's an agnostic, but after reading it, she's going wobbly. He said,
wow.
But he said, I have a beef with you. He said, you got the three discoveries that reveal the mind behind the universe. He says, there's one more. It's math. And I had just read in a long essay that he had written.
You can tell the caliber of the discussion by the fact that they're being interviewed by Pool Boy.
And
yeah, that's really edgy, TMM.
Kind of knew where he was going with this, but he starts to explain.
You really nailed that one.
He says all mathematicians are basically mathematical Platonists. They believe mathematical structures, equations, mathematical objects, as the mathematicians call them, circles, geometric forms, have...
Whose video? This is TMM, a fairly big counter-apologist channel, an anonymous guy who doesn't actually show up to defend his positions ever.
An objective reality.
No, not all mathematicians believe this. Henri Poincaré, famous for the Poincaré conjecture, was an anti-Platonist.
A circle has all the same properties to every geometer, irrespective of their preference. Right. We're not
language, their location on the earth.
The Rogan aesthetic. This does look like a crappy. Like if Joe Rogan has his studio in his house, this is like the sub studio in the basement in case the first one's like out of order. And I think Brian Callen actually lives in Joe Rogan's basement also.
The quadratic equation or differential equations, they have certain properties. And
has he been invited to debate? Yes. Yes. Every single one of these channels that did a review of my earlier series, Arguments Against Atheism 1, 2, and 3, I asked them straight up, hey, thanks for the review. Would you mind? Do you want to set up a one-on-one and talk about this? And then nothing.
And they are stable and...
Only breakfast tacos.
They are mind independent.
Universality is a feature of lots of contrived concepts. Bachelors are unmarried from the perspective of everyone who has the same understanding of the meaning of the word bachelor.
This guy's actually stupid, though. Even the first sentence here, universality is a feature of lots of contrived concepts. No, you can't contrive a concept without having universality. So, like, we're not talking about contrived concepts. We're talking about the laws of thought. This is why this argument for mathematics is novel and interesting, and I've heard it. And I think it's a fair approach. But the problem is it doesn't get to the root And the root of math is what? Logic. Math is an extremity of logic, an expression of logic, the classical laws. So universality of the laws of thought, he says, are features of, like they're features of lots of contrived concepts. No, the concept, the thing that's a referent, like an apple, the word apple is contrived. The sound for an apple is changing for times and for cultures, but the thing you're referring to is universal. That's not contrived, bro.
This is the case despite the fact that bachelorhood and marriage are cultural contrivances.
And yet,
we're not talking about that. We're talking about contradictions. Math, contradictions. We're not talking about the shape of the two, bro. This guy was like, yeah, but the shape of the two is arbitrary, like the name of the bachelor.
Yet they are independent of our perceptions, but they are conceptual. They are not physical. They are not material.
If they're not physical or material, then they're not conceptual because concepts are models created by a brain and are thus physical phenomena.
Oh my gosh. You see how certain he is? I would just wreck this guy in a debate. You know what I mean? He really puffs out my pride. He says it's so sure. Listen to the idiocy this guy spews. Like so certain. If they're not physical or material, then they're not conceptual because concepts are models created by a brain. Is a model physical? What's a model made of, dude? A model is conceptual and abstract by definition. And abstract by definition is not concrete. So you notice how these people, with such certainty and such arrogance, I've earned my arrogance. With such certainty and arrogance, they collapse the distinction between abstract and concrete. Models are concrete? Oh, that's interesting. Congratulations, moron. That means universal models don't exist. There's only particular ones that are made of matter in each of our brains. This is why they don't debate, you guys. This is exactly why they don't debate. This guy has to hide behind his little blue screens and his text and his stupid voice. At least I get in front of my stupid voice.
And are thus physical phenomena.
So they're objective.
Physical phenomena. Yeah, I'll just make a baseless assertion and move on because my audience is actually retarded. Models are physical phenomena? Please tell me where you held a model. Please, TMM, please tell me where you extracted a model and reduced it to material. Top tier entertainment, tax remitted. Thank you so much for paying for your top tier entertainment. This is a good deal. You pay for good entertainment, good commentary. You giggle a little bit. You think a little bit. You take the piss out of me a little bit. I push back a little bit. But you'll also send me on my way to Nashville for my first in-person debate. That means I'll be standing. I'm going to be standing. It's going to be wild. It's going to be wild. Thank you so much. Well, Emmanuel pays 100 Mexican currencies. Physical goal phenomena. Thank you so much.
Objective, they're conceptual, but they do not. But mathematicians believe they are discovered, not invented.
They're
because they have a reality independent of ours.
This is a common misconception that I think arises from the fact that discoveries are made about invented mathematical concepts.
No. He just contradicted himself. You can't discover an invention. Those are two different things. You invent something and it's pragmatic. You invent it. That's what an invention is. He's like, yeah, discoveries are also total inventions. What are you talking about? No, they're not. They're not. You either discover something, and definitionally, if something's discovered, whatever you discovered existed before you. Now, I use this analogy a lot because it's pretty bulletproof. Can you imagine doing a scavenger hunt on your phone where the things you, quote, discover don't actually exist? So you look under the rock, right, and you're winning the scavenger hunt. because you're inventing what you're discovering. You just look under a rock. No, nothing's there. Well, why don't you just create what's there? Okay, great. I'm going to create what I just found. What the? Bro, what's a discovery? What's a discovery? If it's an invention. Like you just invent it. You could just invent any discovery then. Some Jort coin for my favorite YouTuber. Thank you so much, David James Flood. Appreciate you.
The most basic mathematical concepts are invented, like numbers and geometric shapes.
No. The numbers and the... No. The terms for the shapes, the terms for the numbers are invented. Those are arbitrary for the sake of communication, right? But the principle behind math is based in logic, which you can't say is invented because you can't invent something without already assuming logic exists. You can't invent logic. You can't invent the laws of thought. You can't do that. It's impossible.
However, once we invent something, we can make discoveries about those inventions. For example,
once we invent something, we make discoveries. Dude, this guy is like fried. Like the only time you invent something and make a discovery about it is a mistake or something you missed, you didn't intend on discovering. So let's say you invented a machine that makes ice cream. And for some reason, through practice, even though that was made for ice cream, you figure out that it makes, for some reason, produces really good ragu sauce. For some weird reason. It wasn't designed to, but you discovered that it does that. He's saying that the discoveries about math, once the concepts are invented, are completely accidental, the same way an accidental discovery of a machine that's designed for making ice cream actually makes better ragu sauce than it does ice cream. It's all accidental, by the way.
Well, right-angle triangles were invented, but Pythagorean theorem was discovered.
Well, if
that's one of the great ideas of philosophy, right. Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared.
These are consequences of logic, okay? We didn't invent the consequences of logic, okay? Mathematical theorems, geometrical theorems, Pythagorean. This is a consequence of rules. These are consequences.
That reality exists, whether you're here or not, whether the firmament is here, it doesn't matter. That's a reality.
Not true. Pythagorean theorem was meaningless before triangles were invented. I think the reason people get confused about this is because when you try to imagine a scenario without humans, you could still imagine the Pythagorean theorem being true. This, however, is projection. In such a hypothetical scenario, Pythagorean theorem is true in the same sense that it's true that the summer solstice of the year 1 million BCE occurred in June, despite the fact that the month of June is a cultural contrivance that hadn't been invented yet.
This guy's collapsing two things. He's collapsing the universal referent that we're referring to and the name of the referent. Do you guys understand this? Same thing with the apple. Okay? When we talk about an apple, the type of thing that it is, and it's not a lamb. The referent is universal. That's a category, okay? Even the particular is in a category. He's arguing that the name of the apple makes it totally invented. That's what he's doing. He's just collapsing the name of the thing for the thing itself. He thinks reference and references are the same, one and the same.
Yet.
So if they're conceptual, meaning mental.
Which means physical, because the mind is a physical phenomenon.
Another baseless assertion. Let's see if anyone responded to this. The mind is a physical phenomenon, I said. Baseless assertion from narrator. Let's see what he says. It's based on the... Look, guys, he's actually responded to me here. I quoted him. The mind is a physical phenomenon. He just said this. Baseless assertion. He says it's based on the fact that it is an activity carried out by the brain and the incoherence of mental activity occurring but being carried out by nothing. What? That's not even a coherent sentence, by the way. Here's a refutation in real time of this statement right there. I get this a lot, by the way. When someone says the mind is physical, I go, how did you determine the mind is physical? And they say, well, the thing that we refer to as a mind requires the physical brain. Now, even if you granted this inextricable tie between mind and the brain, that's like saying this. Meaning is physical because speaking requires air perturbation. I'll even write it right to him right now, you guys. So meaning is physical simply because speaking requires, so dumb, air. How do you even spell perturbation? I don't even know. Perturbation? Perturbation? That doesn't follow. Doesn't follow, Kang atheist. They always hate LOL if you write LOL, by the way. Just tips for atheists. If you guys are dealing with atheists, they despise LOL.
And they're independent of our perceptions. In whose mind do they exist?
They're not independent of our perceptions. You just think that because if you imagine a scenario in which there are no human minds, you're still imposing the ideas in your own mind.
Wow, deep. They're not independent. The laws of thought are not independent of our perceptions. Really? Where do you perceive the law of identity, bro? Where do you perceive it as a thing?
And on that hypothetical scenario.
And this mathematician, now writing a book on this with our colleague David Berlinski, says this seems
Berlinski
to point.
Berlinski. Oy. Berlinski.
Towards an immaterial mind, towards theism.
No, it doesn't.
And so
Michael?
you miss.
Good refutation, bro. No, it doesn't.
That's a number 3 mathematician in the
you
world,
missed something,
Michael.
Meyer. He said there was. It should be four
cool.
things that reveal the mind.
That's so cool, though. What an endorsement.
Let's see what numbers 1 and 2 think of that.
Son of a bitch. Son of a bitch. He had to get the number 1 and number 2.
Well, because but again, how does science work? It's very much a collective social enterprise of trying to convince your colleagues that you've got something worth listening to and that you have evidence for it.
Sure.
And if you don't, well, that's just the way it goes.
Myron Chuck says, if the mind is physical, then thoughts are physical, which means the brain breaks physics. Right. Well, it also means this, Myron Chuck. If the mind is physical, that means propositions are physical and they're chemically determined. How can it be, TMM, if you're listening, how can it be that chemistry can be correct or incorrect? Tell me that. Not a single one of you atheist spurgs can answer this question. It really is the killer to your philosophy or absent philosophy. If you're a materialist, if you're a physicalist, if you're a naturalist, you have to be consistent and say evaluations and your utterances and your thoughts, they're all determined chemistry. And yet you think Christians have wrong thoughts? Please, sir, can you tell me where in the beaker one is false and one is true? What do you think, there's false shark fins? What is this? Hey, look, honey, a false tornado coming in. What do you mean, honey? It looks like a real tornado. Nope, false one. It's a false one. Is it still going to wreck our house? Yep. Your chemical reactions are not true. Mine are true. Mine are true chemical reactions. That's what a debate is for a physicalist, you guys. A debate for a physicalist is simply saying, you know what? I was determined to show up here. Something came over me mechanically and physically where I bought my own ticket. I don't even remember what happened. And then I showed up here at this debate in this weird hotel lobby with probably mediocre food. And I got up to the podium and I announced I was debating someone else. And by debate, I mean two chemical reactions standing before a bunch of other chemical reactions we like to call human for pragmatic sake. And I'm going to argue that one set of determined utterances from the mouth, no different than air from the anus, is going to be correct. And the other chemical reaction called Jimbob is going to come up and try to chemical against my chemical. You know what? We're going to figure out, if it takes all weekend at the modern day debate, we are going to at least try our best to come to the conclusion on which chemical reaction is correct. Okay, nut job.
I mean, I get letters all the time from people that, that they have an alternative theory of physics too. There's hundreds of them, but most of them.
This isn't an alternative theory of math. This is a.
I wish Michael Meyer was like. Is that his name, Michael Meyer, or is that Jason? Stephen Meyer would be like, keep quiet, midget.
Oh, I understand.
This is a question of the philosophy of mathematics.
Yeah.
And it happens that most mathematicians are mathematical Platonists. They recognize this objectivity and immateriality of mathematical objects.
If that's true.
See, I don't think this is the best argument like Platonism. Like that. I don't think the move of mathematical objects have this like ethereal thing out there, because it's not exhaustive. It doesn't actually point to the personal God. It's not the logi. It's not grounded in the mind of God. It's not divine conceptualism. It's just like a bridge. It's like, oh, they're out there. They need a spot. You know what it is? It's conceptual orphans. That's what Platonism is. It's like a conceptual orphanage. You're like, dude, just take the next step. However, math being derivative of logic, you might as well just skip to the laws of thought, you guys. I don't know why you're doing this math stuff. Why are you doing Platonism stuff if you can just say, wait a second, let's get to the core of this. Math is derivative of logic. Logic, the three classical laws of logic, are conceptual and abstract. If anybody argues otherwise, and this is going to come up in the debate with Peterson, right? I'm not going to reveal all of my attacks, but he's got to give an ontological type of existence. He's got to tell me in what way do the laws of thought exist, given that they're conceptual and not concrete. He's trapped. All of them are trapped. Why? Because there's only two options. Well, there's three options. One option is that you say the laws of logic are conceptual and universal, which has an entailment. Or you say the laws of logic are particulars, and each one of our brains has our own special, unique, material law of identity. Like it's made of something, but that means it's not universal. So you got to scrap that. Then the third option is what I commonly run up against with these types, is that they conflate the two. They just say, well, no, there's no such thing as the distinction between abstract and concrete. Everything's concrete. Everything. All of it. Well, that's the same problem as the number two problem, which is if everything's concrete, then there's no universal statements that are true. There's only nominalism at the level that what you think is true is an epiphenomenal effect of material brain matter. I mean, think how stupid think how much you have to reject the possibility of God to hold to a position that you admit you can't even know anything. You can't know anything. You're at the effect of, at the mercy and the effect of a determined mechanical, the longest chemical reaction that we know of, called existence. JB Peltier, $5, gets us up to 21, grudgingly sitting in the wreckage of my devastated house. Fake-ass tornado, yeah. It's an untrue tornado. An untrue one.
True, most mathematicians should study some philosophy.
And that raises a question.
And scientists should study philosophy.
If something's conceptual, in which mind is it?
Salmon Pot says it's concrete. What's concrete? Are you being facetious? Is this sarcasm? Salmon Pot?
It reside if it doesn't reside in ours.
It does reside in ours. It only resides in ours.
Whose? This is a contradiction. This TMM with his raspy-ass voice and his arrogance, is arguing that universal concept rests in ours. Who? Which of our brains, bro? TMM. Where are you guys? Why do you guys hide? Get on some panels, dude. You guys would, oh man, I would just throw you around like a rag doll.
In the template in the sky, and that would be God.
Well, okay, so
that would be Yahweh.
Take some basic laws of nature, like when
mathematicians like Kurt Gödel proved God ontologically. In a sense, Polaris, Kurt Gödel establishing two theorems of incompleteness, summarized in very layman's terms, that all logical systems become circular and need to appeal outside of themselves. So when they say, tag argument is circular, and the Christian says this term like there's a virtuous circularity, I think that's like a weak linguistic framing. It's rhetoric, honestly. It's rhetoric, saying virtuous circularity. But the thing is, like, if Kurt Gödel, through his math, proved that you have to force a type of circularity, you have to force it, it's forced. It's actually necessary. Otherwise, it's endless regressive systems. Then obviously the atheist is always also going to assume and accept some level of circularity. The question is, when is circularity acceptable and when is it not? That's the question.
When a star gets to a certain temperature, it fuses hydrogen into helium, and you can describe this with math. All right, but where is that description? I mean, where's the math existing? I mean, where is it? Good question, Sherman? Michael Sherman? Sherman Haynes? Michael Shermer? Shermer. That's a good question. Where presupposes materialism? A Cartesian coordinate system. Where? Where's the location? On the phone. Can you show me it? No, that's the point, bro. Where's the law of identity? Nowhere. Why? Because somewhere assumes materialism. Somewhere is location-based. Like you're trapped. You're trapped in your physical view that everything's physical. Well, but where is it, though? I mean, where is it? Where's the law of identity, non-contradiction? Where is it? Where's the theorem? Where's the theorem? Where's geometry? To these people, geometry doesn't actually exist. There's no existence to geometry. It's not found in anywhere. There's no geometry or straight lines in nature. Nothing. Not a single straight line in nature. It's not in the star. It's where? I mean, it's in somebody's mind, describe it, but the process is actually happening. It's out there.
The processes it's used to describe are separate from us, but the math itself is not. It's no more separate from us than language is.
Wait a second. What? The processes it's used to describe are separate from us. What? How is description separate from us? What? What are you saying, dude? Is AI producing your entire video, TMM, or what?
It's separate from us, isn't it?
But we use words to describe it, or we have equations to describe it. Where are those?
Where's the proposition? That's a good question. Where is Michael Shermer? Michael Shermer, where is a proposition? Yet straight line. Yeah, there's a type of existence for straight lines, and they don't exist in nature. You don't find a line as some sort of material phenomenon in nature. There's nowhere it exists. It's an abstract concept that has a type of existence. Problem with the materialists is when they say what exists or what is reality, they actually build in to their definition of reality physicalism. They just restrict it right off the bat. But by doing that, they restrict the entire category they need to describe the thing they're saying is the only real thing. Isn't that wild? How they don't understand this? I mean, not to condescend them, but maybe partially. Isn't it wild that the materialist, the naturalist, claims that the only thing that's real is the physical world that we engage with, and yet to engage with that world, they need a whole slew of things that are not found in that world. So that's like saying, well, everything I know about the physical world, I'm pretty highly confident that it's true, you know. Everything we've come to know, you know, across empiricism and science, and we have a real good foundation for truth here. And you're like, what's it based on? And they admittedly, they have to say, it's based on a bunch of things I deny the existence of. I deny that those things are real, and yet I need all of the non-real things to argue that this thing is real over here. I mean, it's actually a kind of a form of insanity. That's why I'm always reminded every time I get in these conversations, every time I become silent in prayer, every time I leave divine liturgy, every Sunday, I am reminded that this is not an intellectual problem. This is a spiritual problem, not intellectual.
This is a hard problem.
No, it isn't. They're in our brains.
It's a great question. And
they're in our brains. I mean, God, you're so lazy, TMM. It's probably a good idea you don't debate, dude. I would eat you like some sort of crispy tuna tartare on a cracker.
It's one of the reasons that I think quantum cosmology, the alternative to a straight-up Kalam cosmological argument for the existence of God, has its own theistic implications. Quantum cosmology does, because the explanans, the thing doing the explaining in quantum cosmology, is a mathematical function called a universal wave function, and an apparatus that stands behind that called the Wheeler-DeWitt equation and superspace. There's this whole mathematical apparatus that pre-exists the universe.
That's a contradiction. The universe, or the multiverse if there is one, is all of space and time. Nothing can pre-exist time.
Okay, right. According to your own model, something pre-existed time. To have a singularity, which is borrowing from mathematics and trying to reify it into physics, which is a category error, but even if I granted you some magical moment of a singularity, you're admitting that space-time matter continuum was generated from a single point in time. That's a contradiction. It's not a contradiction that God transcends space-time matter. Just because you can't conceive of it, that's just an argument from your own incredulity. But your view, TMM, even if you said God put it on the shelf, right? Even if you said, all right, I'm going to forfeit God, the God theory for a second. Your view is that a type of time existed before time. That's a contradiction. Read $10 gets us up to 22. Is your argument that math relies on the laws of logic, is universal like the laws of logic, so that is proof of God? Like, why can't you, quote, find equations in the material? You can't find equations as material, first of all, Reed. But yes, I'm arguing that because math is derivative of logic, that you look at the laws of logic, not doing logic, the laws themselves, and you properly categorize them as conceptual and abstract and universal. So without the universality of the laws of logic, you have no consequences to even do math, to work with, because math is based in if-then statements. And so I would start with logic, Reed. I would just go, the laws of logic, what's their ontology? What's the nature of their existence? They say immaterial. They say abstract. Most people just say it, right? All of the atheists I debate have no problem with this first premise. The laws of logic, the three classical laws, are abstract and universal. Abstract assumes concept. Concept assumes mind. Universal concepts don't exist in our brains, but this guy, TMM, which is why he doesn't debate, he couldn't possibly defend the position that the universal concepts exist as matter in our brain. That's insane. You could never defend that position.
Physical universe, and the physical universe is explained as a consequence of the mathematics that pre-exists the universe. Now,
nonsense. That's like saying that a thing is a consequence of its description.
the people, the guys at the forefront of this, not the...
No, he's not saying that. He's saying that descriptions require preconditions. That's what he's saying. It's a type of tag. It's not for God directly. It's sloppy, but it's saying that descriptions require a precondition. The descriptions don't give us, which is ironic that if you rewind this guy TMM, who's doing this video, he was the one who argued that descriptions make the reality. He's the one who said that.
Popularizers, but people like Volinkin have said, wait a minute, doesn't that imply then, aren't we then saying, maybe we don't want to be saying this, maybe inadvertently we're saying this, but doesn't that imply that there's a mind behind the universe?
Since the universe or multiverse is all of existence, it is a contradiction to say that anything exists behind it.
And Hawking himself tumbled to the...
No, that would be a type of category error. If there is something that transcended space-time and matter, even if you couldn't conceive of it in your head with your limited mind space or whatever you have, TMM, it doesn't follow, because that would just be you presupposing existence is grounded only in material. You see how this works? Their refutation to God having a type of existence that's not identical to matter is based on their assumption that anything that's worthy of calling existing is matter anyway, which we've already refuted. Not even halfway through this, we've already refuted him. Strict materialism refuted. Naturalism refuted over and over again.
This uncomfortable realization, he said, what is it that puts fire in the equations that gives them a universe to describe? And what he's...
Jimbob, I want to ask you a question. What is your plan for this channel? What are your intentions with my daughter? Think you're going to continue making videos? Yeah, I'll keep making videos. I mean, I'm going to put a lot of creative energy into Orthothugs, season 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll probably get a little more creative on this channel. I'm going to make more pre-made videos, I think. I have one in mind already. That's going to be funny, humor-based. So I think I'm going to go toward humor. I'm going to do philosophical takedowns, but I think I need to take a humorous approach, which, you know, my ranting has an element of humor. You know, all of this is fun, but I'm going to bring out the humor and philosophy guns and really reduce it down to something palatable that's entertaining and perhaps on the side of animation or skits. I think that would be good for me.
He's saying he's built...
Look up inflation field or inflaton. They cooked it up to justify the problems associated with the Big Bang. Of course they did, David. Of course they did. That's why they invented the initial state, which is just God, the initial state. Abject Fool, $10. Do they believe that matter is eternal and uncreated? Yes, most of them are pushed into that category, just like the Mormons.
Building off of what Michael just said is that math by itself has no, it's causally inert.
If that's true, then the universe can't be a consequence of it.
He didn't say the, what? He didn't say the, oh my gosh, this guy is such a bad faith weasel. He didn't say that the universe is a consequence of math. He said that the universe is describable using math and language because the preconditions are held true. That it means that the laws of logic need to be in place, invariant and constant, such that the thing you're calling the universe, TMM, can be described. Math can be even descriptive. He didn't say math causes anything, dude. You lying weasel.
It doesn't. It's
just there.
Conceptual. It's not a physical thing that.
We Need AI says, wouldn't it take time for a God to be made? No. God wouldn't only necessarily and logically be eternally uncreated, not made.
Causes other physical things to happen.
Yes, it is. So, well, but I mean, there are theoretical theorems that later on. So somebody writes a theorem. Somebody dedicates his life to a theorem. They die at 85. 100 years later, somebody pulls that off.
By the way, he just refuted gravity, because if he admitted that math is descriptive, not causal explanation, math doesn't do anything. It doesn't act on anything. purely descriptive, then you can't just use math to reify some causal law like you do with gravity.
The shelf.
Well, that
to
is
use to measure
that is
X, Y,
a
and
crazy.
Z.
Poolboy makes a good point. If math were a non-physical, causally inert thing, how could it have any consequences for our thoughts and actions?
What? It doesn't. It has logical consequences. In math, there are logical consequences through if-then statements. Like, in a sense, 2 + 2 = 4 is an if statement. If the value of 2 is what we say it is, and the other 2 is also that value, then the consequence is the answer is 4. It doesn't mean that 2 causes a tree to fall. What? What are you saying?
This mathematician that
Unbelievable.
I was
man.
talking about.
I mean, that's incredible.
This is what his essay was about. Is this unreal
What are you talking about?
physical world?
He means Wigner's The Unreasonable Effectiveness of Mathematics in the Natural Sciences. In that essay, Wigner argues that whereas it is unquestionably true that the concepts of elementary mathematics, and particularly elementary geometry, were formulated to describe entities which are directly suggested by the actual world, the same does not seem to be true of the more advanced concepts, in particular the concepts which play such an important role in physics. He argues that it is therefore unreasonable that equations that involve such concepts should be so useful when describing physical phenomena. They play an unreasonably important role in physics. I don't agree, because while those concepts may not be directly suggested by things we empirically observe, they are conceptually inherent to the concepts of elementary mathematics from which they are derived. An example Wigner uses is complex numbers. These are numbers that are the square roots of negative numbers. Since when you multiply a positive number by a positive number, you get a positive number, and when you multiply a negative number by a negative number, you also get a positive number, that denotes the idea of a special kind of number that has this function of producing a negative product. It's represented by the letter I. The square root of -1 equals I. The reason some people think this is some kind of spooky, woo-woo, non-physical entity is because you'll never see a recipe calling for I teaspoons of salt. Nor will you ever see a thermometer that tells you it's I degrees outside. You can't use it to describe empirical observations in quite the same way as you can with regular numbers, but it is nonetheless very useful in physics equations. I don't see this as unreasonable, given that while complex numbers can't be used like the other concepts of elementary mathematics that are directly suggested by the actual world, it is nonetheless conceptually inherent to these elementary concepts. Wigner says, certainly nothing in our experience suggests the introduction of these quantities, but while they aren't directly suggested, they are indirectly suggested. So I don't understand what the mystery is. They are denoted by the combination of elementary concepts like negative numbers and square roots, so why is it so unreasonable that they be just as effective at describing reality?
Quantum mechanics was developed.
Oh my goodness!
The mathematics of
Lord have
complex
mercy on
variables,
our souls.
was developed long before it had any application on the basis of pure deductions, mathematical deductions from first principles.
Right, they are inherent to concepts invented to describe empirical observations.
No, dude, you can't describe empirical observations without assuming something that you can't describe in nature, dude. Do you understand this? You filibustering weasel. You can't say universal concepts. You can't use those things and then be like, well, I'm just using those universal concepts to describe nature. Well, that's what's in question, dude. What's in question is the status, the ontology, the way in which these things exist, preceding descriptions. Preceding, that means they exist before. You have to assume them before we describe. That's why I think atheism, as much as I know for certain, it becomes a spiritual issue. But the part of me that's always teased into thinking it's categorically intellectual, there is this take I have that seems to be pretty consistent. And you guys tell me what you think. It makes sense that to think properly, you need to first have some sort of proper categorization of things. Categories like, is something universal or particular? Category like, is it concrete? Is it immaterial? Category like scientific theory versus law. category like math, category like language. So there's a web of knowledge that we all assume, all of us. Everything is theory-laden. All of our knowledge is theory-laden. And so if that's the case, the only way to examine properly the world, the natural world, the physical external world, is to also use philosophy, which is another thing you have to properly categorize. Hence, the philosophy of science precedes the activity of science. So if the philosophy of science precedes the activity of science, something philosophical would precede the activity of taxonomy or empirical observations and these things, right? But what I find that seems to be the case every time I examine it, every time I engage with these types of people, when they have the balls to do it, is that they have a flawed categorical system. Like they don't properly categorize things. They miss and match. They mix and match. It's like this game to them. And so the question is like, okay, well that's an intellectual problem. Failure to properly categorize things in a sort of like a philosophical schema that you can traverse and like play with and examine and navigate. It's like their compass is off. But the question is like, is their compass off because they're spiritual? They don't have a spiritual category? Is that what it is? Like that seems to be pretty consistent. That to have your nous clouded, or in Jordan Peterson language, if your windshield is cloudy and you don't have a windshield wiper, it's like you're driving in a complete fog. And it's like if your spiritual and intellectual faculties, even if they're somehow merged in some sort of metaphysical organ, like the distinction in orthodoxy, the nous, then it's like, what even road are you on? It's like, what good is your windshield wiper even clearing off the windshield if you don't even have a map? It's like, where are you going?
There's nothing non-physical about that. Deductions from first principles simply unpack the fuller meaning of those first principles. Numbers.
We Need AI says, I'm an ex-Christian. I know everything a Christian knows. No, you're not an ex-Christian. You're not an ex-Christian.
In elementary
Probably at best an ex-evangelical cultist.
mathematical concepts were invented to describe experience, and complex numbers were discovered to be denoted by those descriptions.
And then 100 years later, so it turns out to be absolutely critical to doing quantum mechanics. And there are many, many examples of this in the history of physics. What is it that why does John Polkinghorne, the great Cambridge physicist, used to say, why does the reason within the mathematics...
They need spiritual division, yeah. Go sign up for OrthoThugs. Start with your spiritual division.
...that we develop...
A massive super chat. Holy moly. Holy cow! That is a big super chat! Aaron's B, thank you so much. Much love to you. Big likes, W's in the chat for Aaron's B. A drink for you and the missus in Nashville. I'm not far from there in North Carolina, so I hope to see you there if work and family allow. Yeah, please make it over, man. Have a beer with me. That'd be great. That would be awesome. Thank you for that. That was very generous.
On the basis of our deduction.
Earth says, do you agree that all of reality is non-natural or non-material? No. Non-natural or non-material? No.
Deductive reasoning match and describe precisely the reason that is built into the universe, the design of the universe. And he says the best explanation for that is, again, theism.
No, it isn't. I gave a better explanation in a previous video.
No,
to give another example, let's say you're building a truss for a roof. You know,
who's building a trust? Is it someone with mind and the capability of examining the future and having a concept of the past? I mean, did you just grant yourself mathematics, reasoning, the regularity of nature, meaning? I mean, did you just grant? It's like this guy just grants himself an entire slew of things that his own view can't justify. But now he's talking about building things.
know you want to make half the tie beam to be 4 meters, and you want the king post to be 3 meters, so you need to know how long to cut the rafters to get them to fit. Well, you can use Pythagorean theorem to calculate that the rafter length is 5 meters. So you cut some wood to 5 meters, you stick it into the truss, and voila, it fits. Wow! The universe must obey the rules of math, and God must have made it that way, right?
No, but there's other things, like I said at the beginning, you arrogant fuckhead. Like your mind. Like you have to have this concept that you, an agent of thought, can reason through these things. That the laws of nature and the regularity of the consequences of the laws of nature, the laws of physics, the laws of logic, maintain from A to B to B to C for as long as you exist, dipshit. The fact that you can do math to make truss beams on a house rely on a whole slew of preconditions that you just grant yourself arrogantly and say, they just are. You know what I need? I need a beep. I need a beep. Because I don't like cussing. I'm trying to stop cussing. I want to be a good boy. But this guy, man, do I want to make paintball just a public event. Boy. Accidental math. That's exactly what it is, Extanglia. This guy has to hold to an accidentalist approach to the reality that what he's in. And he has to argue that not only evolution, everything he probably believes happened, is also accidental, but it's also accidental that we produce reasoning, accidental reasoning. And not only that reasoning is accidental, but every notion of reasoning is some sort of chemical reaction that's determined. And then it's accidental to build a house, too. Accidental. Accidental math, accidental house building, accidental proposition, accidental debating. Accidental murder on a bus in North Carolina. Accidental. This guy makes it hard to be good, seriously. And the fact that they hide in the shadows, they're such little worms. They're like little hermit crabs. They're worse. They're like sea lice. He hides behind his channel. He never steps up to the podium. He never goes one-on-one in a debate. This guy is such a coward. Forgive me.
No. When you describe this section of the truss as being a right-angle triangle, and you describe half the tie beam as being 4 meters, and the king post as being 3 meters, you are not then predicting that the rafter will be 5 meters. The idea that the rafter is 5 meters is conceptually inherent to the description that you've already given. By saying...
What? No, dude. What are you talking about, dude? A description comes after the reality, man. I don't know why they think this is the case. I honestly don't know what they're thinking. Do you understand what's happening here? I said at the beginning of the video. They collapse categories. If something can be described, it has to exist in a way to describe it. You can't describe something into existence. What are you describing? From this view, there's no difference between the description and the thing being described. The reference and the referent. Same thing from his view. None of this could be described, buddy, unless it has a type of ontology that's discoverable. Do you understand, little guy?
Saying that half the truss is a right-angle triangle, half the tie beam is 4 meters, and the king post is 3 meters, you are effectively already saying that the rafter is 5 meters. It's not a coincidence that the measurements of the truss happen to be logically consistent with the measurements you've already made.
Hello, what's in question is, how is it we have a world that's logically consistent? That's the question, dude. How are you not understanding this? How are you not getting this, dude? He just grants himself the consistency and the consequences of logic maintaining. That the regularity of a truss beam that maintains its composition, that it holds itself, that it weighs a certain amount, that there's a length to it, that it comes from a tree, dude. I mean, all of this stuff, he's just like, yeah, no, the world's a certain way. The world's a certain way that's intelligible and I can describe it. Yeah. And we're like, yeah. What's the atheist naturalist justification that the world is the way it is? Guess what it is every time. You guys could beat me to the answer in the chat. What do they say every time when we ask, how is it? Justify from your worldview. How is it the world is the way it is? Every time. Every single. It just gets me so angry. Just gets me so angry. I just want to just run up on them and just. So all of their entire, all of them are just out there in the road just.
It certainly isn't something that needs to be explained by a supernatural design.
Stanglia, yeah, it just is. Reality is reality. Yep, that's it. Cool. Cool. The beep is very loud. Sorry. Let me check. Let me change it. Let me get the beep. Let me get it to a perfect position. Okay. How about that? Is that better? That should be good. Thank you for that.
The reason why complex numbers are effective for describing quantum phenomena is because they are already a part of the descriptions of simpler phenomena that use the more elementary concepts that implicitly contain them.
Oh, gosh. They accuse us for word salad. It's just insane. That was a long way of saying it just is. Oh, the reason it's a certain way is because something before it is a certain way. Wow, Einstein. You're really doing great today. You piece of... Calm down with the F-bombs. I know, I'm trying. I'm trying to hold back on all of this. I don't even need to say it.
It provides a principle of correspondence that the same God who made the design, the rationality, the orderly patterns we...
I have a theory that the beep is actually worse mentally, psychologically, than the actual cuss.
see in nature made our minds in such...
You know what I mean? It's like seeing a blur. Like if someone blurs something out that doesn't need to be blurred, you still experience it as the thing that needs to be blurred. So you know it needs to be blurred. That's what you think. You're like, oh, it's blurred. Like if you could just blur people in reality without like a TV, other people would be disgusted. They would be disgusted. Like it wouldn't even require being like, wait, what's being blurred? You would just feel disgust from the blur. So I wonder if this is actually producing a worse effect than just saying the F-bomb. Like the beep might be worse.
Such a way to discern the mathematical structure that is inherent in those systems.
Sometimes it's the best word to use. Yeah, that's why I'm pretty sparing with my F-bombs.
And that's why we can do science.
Meyer makes the assumption, which is very common among religious apologists, that the default state of reality is chaos and order must exist because it is deliberately imposed by a conscious mind.
Meyer makes the assumption, which is very common among religious apologists, that the default state of reality is chaos. I don't know who made that. I mean, I would disagree with any religious apologist who actually used the term chaos to describe God's creation. I don't even know if he's steelmanning Meyer here. He might be actually a little sneaky little snake. That's what I think.
There is no valid reason to
David James Flood, $5 for the cussing jar. Thank you so much.
For this to be the case. I think people infer it from the fact that minds can put things in order, therefore they reckon wherever there is order, there must be a mind that imposed that order. This is affirming...
Hey, TMM, I'm sorry, buddy, but you have no, zero, zip, zilch, no justification or consistent definition or referent for what a mind is. Zero. I mean, look what he's saying here. There's no valid reason to infer that this to be the case. I think people infer it from the fact that minds, what's that, bro? Can put things in order. Sorry, dude. Under your view, minds need to be in order. Whatever you call a mind, TMM, in order for a mind, which is part of things in order, right, already in the world, minds in the world, you're calling them physical, TMM. We aren't. He says minds can put things in order. Notice how he gives this metaphysical term, a mind, which he holds as physical. He gives it some sort of purposeful ability to do a thing, to put things in order. But from his own view, the mind itself is among the things. Do you understand? Are you following? Under his view, the mind is in the same basket as the things that the mind is putting in order. So what he's saying is things put things in order. Things. And yet, from his own view, there's no order to that. There's no order to that. He just grants himself a mind. He just grants himself evaluation every time, these people. You know what I mean? That's why sometimes debating is not enough for some of these guys. Sometimes you just have to get up in the face of these people and just tell them what it is, okay?
The consequent.
And actually, that principle.
Jimbob, who's the guy? He has a channel called TMM. He's done a couple of attempted refutations of my videos. Actually, I want to find one right after this. Because my first video, Arguments Against Atheism, basically got thrown through the sort of circus of atheism online, and not a single one could make a valid, concise, coherent counter to my argument.
Principle of correspondence was one of the key things that inspired the scientific revolution. It was called the principle of intelligibility. And all the great theists who were the early founders of modern science, Boyle, Kepler, Newton, believed that nature was intelligible and could be understood by the human mind because the design in nature issued from the same intelligence, namely God, who made our minds
in his likeness,
so that we could understand nature.
If he made our minds in such a way that we could understand nature, why did he make us so fallible?
That's not an argument, dude. That's not a contradiction. You little maggot. If he made our minds in such a way we can understand nature, then why did he make us so infallible? That's not a contradiction. It's not a contradiction to have a fallible reasoning faculty. And he didn't make us that way. You know, from a Christian view, there's a fall, okay? They always leave this part out. Why? Because they're mostly dishonest little who just purposely mislead people. That's what it is. Zero. We need AI. Name a question I can't answer on my own. I'll tell you, AI.
You can't say that it's because of the fall, because the fall wouldn't have happened if we were infallible from the outset. Also,
what? No, that doesn't follow, bro. We are made with will. If we weren't made with will, we would just be robots. So the atheist cope is simply this. The atheist cope is very ironic, by the way. It goes like this. The only way I could conceive of a God creating us is if he created us as equal to him without any like real will of the matter, though. Like sort of like we're robots. We're meat robots that only follow his will, and we have no choice in the matter. That's the only way I can conceive of God existing. And you go to the atheist, you say, that's interesting. Isn't your view of reality is that we're meat puppets that are determined completely? And they're like, yeah. Wait, so we already meet the criteria, the first criteria for you to believe that God made us? We already meet that? Welcome to Calvinism, I guess.
so we don't even know for sure that the universe is entirely intelligible. There may be aspects of it that
we don't know it's entirely intelligible is to assume that it's intelligible. Right?
we will never be able to understand. And science does not require that everything be intelligible. You don't need to assume that any particular phenomenon is intelligible to use science to investigate whether it is intelligible.
It's a hell of an argument. I mean,
Although I should point out that some.
If we were infallible, we wouldn't have eaten the juicy fruit. Yeah, it's not about infallibility. It's we were made good, but good includes will. Otherwise, it's robot. Robots can't be good. Meat robots can't be good or bad. So if we're made good and we're made in God's image, we have choice.
Since
I can
mentioned,
feel Michael's skepticism.
Well, you mentioned Max Tegmark before. He deals with the same problems and does not come to the theistic conclusion at all.
Even if it were the case that math were some woo-woo, spooky, non-physical entity, it would not necessarily follow that they come from some ultimate mind.
Yeah, it does. It actually does follow. Why? It goes like this. TMM. Laws of logic are universal and abstract. Abstractions are conceptual, okay? So abstract and conceptual are synonymous. So the laws of logic are universal and conceptual. Concepts require a mind. Human beings can't produce universal concepts. Conclusion, it's reasonable to assume a type of mind is to account for universal concepts. I would call that a universal mind. Makes sense. A universal mind, universal concepts. What else are you going to reason? I mean, what else could you reason it to? The trees? The whales? The sky? You going to do astrotheology on me? How does it not make sense? Anyway, let's take a look, see. Take a look, see if this guy, if I can find this. TMM. Let's see if I can go back in time where he tried to refute my arguments against atheism, volume 1. And this argument, still I use this to this day, this argument, which is an argument against the physicalist. Well, let's just find it. Let's find it so it's not redundant here. Here we go. Okay, Jimbob doesn't understand science. That's a true cope, man. When you is this it? 10 months ago? That feels like too soon. Okay, that's not it. He's reviewed me 3 times. I made it, you guys. I made it. He also did one of the problem of evil. Didn't do a good job. Theist makes a fallacious point. Let's see. Okay. Here we go. This is it. All right. Let's talk about baby Jimbob. Okay, this is about a year ago. Okay, about a year ago. Let's take a look at this. Okay, so where are we? We need AI. Here we go. We need AI. I don't know if you're just an atheist troll, but if you're a really atheist, follow this argument with us, please. Follow this argument. Speaking of arguments, Jimbob needs funding to go to Nashville. Funding comes from you guys. If you guys don't fund me, I can't go to Nashville. We're at 30 of 50, y'all. 20 more to go. Doing pretty good, but 46 minutes left. Oof. I don't know about that. It's not looking good. So I'm going to have to drop the taxation hammer, okay? I'm going to have to start using my beep. You know what I mean? Do I have to yell at my own citizenry? Is that a word? Citizenry? Do I have to yell at the residents? What are you guys, cheap? There we go. Abject fool knows what's up. Isn't accidentalism incompatible with evolution? Yes. Yep. So is emergent property, emergentism. Abject fool. Emergentism is incompatible with evolution as well. But yet, all you get is emergent property. Emergent properties. Okay, buddy. Calm down. Calm down. All right. Ready to get this party started? Let's get a train of super chats here. Get it going, y'all. Here's your taxes. Thank you. Pay your taxes here. Okay? Don't be cheap. Don't live off the land. Don't pretend you don't need the system. Don't pretend you get any products for free. Stop it. If I add up enough, quote, imaginary numbers, does it result in the existence of dinosaurs? Yes. Yes, Harry, it does. The property was so emergent. For Nashville, Abby Zong, thank you so much, Abby. Appreciate your ongoing support, Abby. Every time I see the consistent supporters, it just warms my heart. It also proves that elitism and classism is real. You know what I mean? Chair throwing Italian. Exactly. Exactly. You can't tax us. We got no right. We got rights. Yeah, right. Speaking of, why don't you guys all bother after the stream? Go bother Seamus from Freedom Tunes. Be like, why don't you debate Jimbob? I would love that. You know, I couldn't imagine. I was having trouble imagining if I like wanted on Tim Pool or something and I had an in, obviously, have a couple of angles here. It would need to be the right topic. And so there's only two topics I would like think were appropriate for that podcast in person, which is rights. I'm confident in that argument. And like the state of like humor and satire in the world, because that could be more fun to do. We are proud of what we are like. I'll have to find that again. Thank you so much, Scott Andy. Mr. Krabs needs his Monet. Yeah, Mr. Krabs needs his Monet. Or I pinch you. Can't be a Sovsit in Jordanlandia. Yeah, those people. You know, they're the first to the gulags. Tim Pool is a politics show. Yeah, but rights is politics and so is humor. The comedy is politics. He wants to do more comedic stuff. It's just that he's not reaching out to the right people. You know what I mean? He also wants to be the guy. So if he has a politics show, he wants to be the guy with the answer. If he has like a slightly more funny show, he wants to be the guy that's funny. So, Kate Shaw, $10. I just built my house in Jortlandia, and the mayor is already screaming obscenities at me. I know, you should, you know, get it together. Who is actually Freedom Tune? Yeah, that's the guy, Seamus. You guys still play L's in the chat? Absolutely. I mean, now that you're here, you know what I mean, Ryan? You're like one of the biggest catalysts for the song itself. L's in the chat. L's in the chat. L's in the chat. See what I'm saying? See what I'm saying? We still got it. When I think of funny, Tim Pool never comes to mind. That's true, Jason. But he wants it. He wants in there. He wants in there. What's the question? Just hold up. We need AI. Are you even a real person, dude? All right, here we go. Let's put down this sexy music. It doesn't sound right playing this music and watching atheists. I don't like it. I don't like it. All right.
Here's a guy with a fallacious argument against physicalism.
I will beat you up! In this first installment of Arguments Against Atheism, we explore a common position you may have heard from your atheist friends. We're like biological machines, and all of our actions and thoughts and everything are all just like determined by laws of physics and chemistry. I mean, this is basically common knowledge now. Well, in this video, I'm going to give you a fatal argument against this position, and I do mean fatal. Oh, they don't like that. I'm so smug about that. I'm so sure of myself. Welcome to Arguments Against Atheism, a series that aims to provide clear and simple arguments against common atheist positions. Notice how I said common. I didn't say every atheist. I said common. It's common. I'm Jimbob, and I'm here to deliver the goods. First, oh, that annoys them. It even annoys me. I should clarify. Not everyone who is an atheist believes that matter exists and only matter exists, nor does every atheist necessarily defend hard determinism. However, these are common positions taken by atheists.
Then an argument against physicalism and determinism is not really an argument against atheism, is it?
No, it could be, you retard. Here's how. If someone comes to an atheist position because they deny the existence of God based on the assumption that only material things exist, then they are atheists because they reject God based on materialism. You know what's going on here? Do you even know what... You little bitch. Well, atheism is just like the position that holds like there's no belief. I'm speaking to those atheists who are atheists because of their materialism. Maybe atheists are atheists for other reason. This video is not for them. You uncharitable belief in a God. Like, what are you even talking about?
Atheism is the position that holds that there's no belief in God?
What? No, atheism is the position that they don't believe in God.
Never heard that definition before.
I want to fucking find you!
That makes it sound like atheism is the idea that nobody believes in God. I think
Unbelievable. This is the most uncharitable maggot I've ever seen.
this guy probably intended to cite the definition that atheism is a lack of a belief in God.
No, that's actually not really true, though. That's actually not true. Just a lack of a belief? No. Sorry, buddy. Atheism, even if you said it's a type of conclusion, presupposes a type of epistemic system. So it's never... You don't come to the lack of belief in God in a vacuum. You little smug prick.
God. That definition would include agnosticism as well as people who say that God does not exist.
Well, yes, and many of you come to that position based on the assumption that physicality is all there is.
It's not an assumption. It's an inference from the fact that every description or definition I've heard of something non-physical seems to be nonsensical.
Really? So information doesn't exist? Nice job. Nice job! Your inference? Are inferences physical? TMM? Are inferences physical or what? So let's examine the assumption. According to the view that we are all merely biological machines, our actions, our thoughts, and our words are all determined by the laws of physics. And Chad Johnson, a lack of belief is agnostic, right? Atheism is a positive claim. There is no God. Chemistry. Let's say it in a much more direct way. Everything we think, everything we say, everything we do are all effects determined by physics and chemistry.
That's right.
That's right. You're toast. It's over. That's right. Let me give you an effect of chemistry real quick. Yeah, that's right. No, that's totally right. Let me just, not from my own will, let me just put an effect of chemistry in linguistic terms.
We make decisions.
No, we don't. No, we don't. No, not from that view, bro. There's no we, bro. There's no we from determinism. There's no we in physicalism. There's it's, a bunch of it's. There's no we. We make decisions. No, you don't. That's like saying a tornado makes a decision. No, it doesn't. Oh, why did the tornado decide to come this way? No, it didn't.
Decisions don't just
Oh, yeah, chemical reactions are decisions. Oh, man, you are just the worst.
happen on their own. Our thoughts and actions are not just random, spontaneous outbursts. They happen for reasons.
Oh, reasons, really? Where are reasons in chemistry, buddy? Where are the reasons? Does anyone see a reason in the? Oh, you know what, ma'am? I was watching the chemical reaction because this is chemistry class, and I was like looking closely, and I saw reasons. I was expecting just a chemical reaction, but I actually saw reasons in the. Is that normal? Is that normal, Mrs. Edwardson? Mrs. Edwardson. Is that normal, Mrs. Edwardson? No, totally normal, TMM. You're going to see reasons in the beaker sometimes that pop up. Physical, weird phenomenon that comes up. You know, because normally we're looking for some sort of like explosion or maybe a bubbling. Listen, class, if you end up seeing reasons pop up in the fizzing, calm down. Don't get excited. It's totally normal, okay? That happens sometimes. An idiot. I love it when the beep covers the non-swears. The non-swear. I know, I'm not even swearing. I have to practice. Like, I don't want to actually swear and cover it. I have to master the non-swear. Thank you, Jason Cassell, for the goal. Another shout out to Jason for the very extremely generous Bob chat for the Ortho Thugs. We really appreciate that, Jason. That really made especially Tony's day, you know, because he's making his, you know, Tony's been introduced to this world. And, you know, when you're introduced to the new playground, you get, you know, there's a little defense. The group protects, right, from the new person. And you don't suddenly just get a party and a parade because you're new. And so he's been working really hard at his own stream and Ortho Thugs, becoming something that he can fully substitute the horrid, no offense to those listening, the horrid reality for him anyway, as a creative person, to be Ubering all day. So really appreciate that help, Jason. It was awesome. Jimbob's cooking today. Yeah, I'm on a tear. I'm feeling, oh man. It's hard to be mad in this shirt, but I'm doing it.
They have causes.
Okay. Well, let's take a look at some other effects of physics in the natural world. Let's take a tornado. This is an effect of a cause. Let's call it a combination of natural conditions. This is a blade of grass growing. Another effect of a cause, also a combination of natural conditions. These are two occurrences entirely determined by the laws of physics. Now, would it make sense to say one of these occurrences are more true or more false than the other? No.
Right, not every physical phenomenon is a clear representation of anything else.
That's not what I said. I didn't say that. I said they're not true or false. I didn't say they're representations of each other. Notice how this entire thing, do I have to play the piano music, the sad music again?
However, some physical phenomena are. For example, a rock which falls into some mud will leave an indentation in that mud with a shape that reproduces the shape of the rock. That's an entirely physical phenomenon, and it is also entirely sensible to say that the shape of the indentation in the mud is a true reproduction or representation of the shape of the rock. Some physical phenomena can, in fact, have truth values.
They just are. No, bro, that's an evaluation of the imprint. You smug. When a rock falls in mud, it's not true or false. It's an event. It's not a true anything. Their effects. We could say that a description of one or the other could be more accurate or less accurate.
And a model, like the shape of the indentation in
No, you don't have access to models yet, bro. We're not there yet. Do I have to play the music again?
some mud is a model of the shape of the rock that made it, can also be more accurate or less accurate depending on how precisely the shape of the rock was recreated by the shape of the indentation.
Oh, you're such a little wormy prick who needs a digital and actual freaking wedgie, bro. You need to wedge you in a locker for eternity.
But as far as the effect goes, it is what it is.
The rock is in the mud. Is that true? Isn't that true? That's a proposition. We need AI. Is it really this hard to follow? A rock falling in mud, a blade of grass, a tornado, anything happening out there is an event. It's not true or false, bro. Okay? Do you understand? You are skipping to the statement, the rock is in the mud. We're not there yet, dude. We're not there yet. We're talking about just the rock. There's just an event. You don't even have the term rock, by the way. I'm granting you language at this point. An event, bro. An event. Something is there, whatever. We're not talking about the propositions about the event yet. You don't get that yet. We don't give you that yet.
It is. It's just an effect. It's not true or false. Because it's not propositional. It's an effect of physics. Make sense? Now, here's where we have a problem. If all of our thoughts and words and actions are caused by the laws of physics, then they too are effects of physics. That means our descriptions of tornadoes or blades of grass are also just effects which are determined by the laws of physics and chemistry.
So notice this is where they really lose it, right? So Ryan Remembers appropriately says a thought is an event. Yes. Ryan, from a physicalist position, if a thought or an evaluation or an utterance, like the example that the AI guy gave, he said, oh, the statement, the rock is in the mud. Under a physicalist view, this event is also non-true or false. This is just an event happening from a physicalist position. That's all it is, an event, a physical, chemical event that's just happening.
Well, didn't we just establish that effects of physics are neither true or false? They just are.
No, we did not establish that. This is a great illustration of a fallacy called affirming the consequent. It's a formal fallacy which takes the form of if A, then B, B, therefore A.
No, this isn't actually the fallacy affirming the consequent. If I said when it rains outside, it's wet. It's wet outside, therefore it rained. I didn't do that. I established that what we know about events in the world, out there in the world, is that they're not truth apt. Okay? That's all I'm doing. I'm describing events in the world that you would agree chemical reactions are not true or false. They're just occurrences, events. That's it. But, okay, he's going to dodge again. Okay.
An example would be, if my pet is a dog, then my pet is a mammal. My pet is a mammal, therefore my pet is a dog. This obviously doesn't follow because if your pet is a mammal, it could be a cat or a ferret or a hamster. This dude's making the same kind of argument. His argument is, phenomena which have no truth value are physical effects, thoughts and words are physical effects, therefore thoughts and words have no truth value. This does not follow for an analogous reason.
It does follow, and the only way that you can counter it is by special pleading. So, there's no way around this, you guys. You can't just grant yourself there's a type of physical phenomenon that's truth apt inside the same category of every other virtual physical phenomenon that's not truth apt. So, in non-fancy terms for the listeners, everything we see out in the world are just events unfolding. Physical events, chemical events, natural events, they're just occurrences. They are not truth apt. From the physicalist position, everything happening in your brain is also something happening in the world. It's the same category. Purely physical. Caused by chemical reactions. Same category. But now notice this. This is going to probably come up in the debate, in modern day debate against Peterson, is notice that they have to tell you that a proposition in their head that's reduced completely to physicality, by the way, from their view. Proposition has a special kind of existence. It's special. It's truth apt. It has capability that these other things don't have. And you go, okay, yeah, I know that's your position. But you have to tell me, because you're a physicalist, what's physically different about those things, that they are truth apt. And they are the only, by the way, the only truth apt physical events you appeal to. Everything else is not truth apt. But for some special reason, your brain produces an epiphenomenal effect that somehow categorically leaps out of the category it's in? Tell me how that happens. Go on, tell your story.
It ignores the simple fact that some physical effects have no truth value while other physical effects do.
How can an effect of physics be anything other than what it is, what it's determined to be by the law? If an evaluation or proposition is an effect of physics, how can it be wrong or right? It just is.
Because some physical phenomena, like thoughts, claims, or indentations in mud, reproduce or depict other physical phenomena.
No, that requires an evaluation, you putz. Every time these guys, they grant themselves the evaluative process, and that's the thing in question. You can't evaluate an imprint or an indentation or a representation without using the thing that's in question, dude. An evaluation. According to you, an evaluation is also an indentation in mud. It's also a tornado. He's just like, well, that's easy. The thing that Jimbob's putting into question, which is evaluation, we go ahead and grab that from him and give it to ourselves, avoid the problem of the evaluation itself being a strict mechanical outcome of chemical reactions, so that we can describe these other things. You are a putz.
Some do so more faithfully than others.
Like a blade of grass. Oh, we hit the goal. Now I have to almost pass out. Abject Fool, $10. Arguments against atheism was like an IQ test akin to the question of how would you feel? Yeah, dude, it really was. That's honestly, I think I got burned out because the responses were so bad faith and so terrible and horrendous, like this one, that I was like, wait a second, this is a waste. This could be a waste of time. This could be actually a waste of time. I mean, look at me. I'm exhausted. I look healthier now, by the way. Don't you guys agree? Look at me. Do I look healthier? Do you guys like me? Do you guys like me? So, let me just rephrase this if you guys are getting lost in the sort of like vernacular. From a physicalist position, these naturalists believe this. They think their brain is completely determined by chemicals. But the brain, from their view, has this strange, unique capacity, unlike any other physical mechanics out there, to produce something that's an effect of the brain that's truth-apt, that has this weird status of being truth or false. But what they're saying is that there's chemistry that's true or false. That's what they're saying. Or a tornado. Now, my critics will say, no, Jimbob, propositions are different because they are descriptions of effects, to which I would respond, well, those descriptions are just effects determined by the laws of physics, right? Yeah, but we can evaluate our descriptions and see if they comport with reality, to which I would respond. Are evaluations just effects determined? The brain chemistry is observable? You mean by brain chemistry, Chad? Every time. The counter is giving yourself a capability by reasserting the thing that's in question. You can't observe something. That's like saying brain chemistry observes brain chemistry. Chad, do you understand? You just grant yourself that we can observe and evaluate brain chemistry. That's what's in question, dude. According to the physicalist, Chad, the observation of brain chemistry is brain chemistry. How can you have a correct or incorrect chemistry? Tell me. Someone tell me. Where's my chemists? Tell me any chemical reaction that produces an effect that you can call true or false. Tell me. Well, we have consciousness, Jimbob. Unbelievably retarded, Chad. No offense, but this is the kind of I'm talking about. Chad, under a naturalist, physicalist worldview, is consciousness just an epiphenomenal result of chemistry? believable.
By the laws of physics?
Yeah, but we have another chemical reaction. You see, Jimbob, it's really simple. Everything's a chemical reaction, but there's this one chemical reaction called consciousness that evaluates the other chemical reactions. Okay. Okay.
Physics.
Yes, just as an indentation.
It's a result of our brains, really. Cool. So if consciousness is a result of the brain, then consciousness is a determined epiphenomenal vapor. Okay? If that's true, Chad Johnson, tell me what chemical is doing the evaluating. Tell me. You have some sort of projection in your mind. You're doing math. You're doing some philosophy in your mind. You're thinking. You're observing in your mind. You're describing. You tell me which chemical is the product of that ends up evaluating the thing. What you're saying is there's a chemical response, a chemical domino effect, that you arbitrarily choose in the domino effect the thing that's the observer. Okay? Think of it this way. There's a bunch of dominoes falling. They're all epiphenomenal effects of the brain. You, Chad, grant yourself that one of those, which is caused by the previous, is the knower, right? Yeah, but we have consciousness. Consciousness is able to escape the domino effect of physicalism and observe the dominoes. No, not under physicalism, it's not. You're just granting yourself a metaphysical position of knowing.
Created in some mud by a rock is determined by the laws of physics. The fact that it's determined by the laws of physics, as opposed to being random, is actually what allows the indentation in the mud.
All right, you guys are owed a goal, so let me restart the goal and give you a near pass out, okay? Let's give you a nice near pass out. Let's give you a nice Nashville pass out. Okay, here we go. You guys ready? Okay. Let's see how I do today. I don't know how this is going to go. I don't know how this is going to go. I should play my sad music. Let's do a goal with sad music. Don't you think? All right, you ready? Lamaze. Chad says, no, we arose from physicalism. Wow, that's deep, bro. Really? When did you observe that? We arose from physicalism? Excuse me? And so did our brains. Really? How did you prove that? Neurons, thus consciousness. You don't understand the problem you're in, Chad. You have no idea the epistemic show you're in right now. You are in a well of total putrid. All right. Ready? All right, 45, not bad. Not terrible. Okay. I'm trying to understand. Okay, wait, Chad. Just wait and watch. Can you tell me where consciousness comes from? When you refer to consciousness, from a materialist position, you can't even tell me what it is. So when you ask, where does consciousness come from? You're assuming you know what this is. You're actually asking, where does brain come from? If you're asking, where does brain come from, then you're not making a meaningful distinction between consciousness and brain. You're just saying, where does brain come from? If you're just going to argue materialist position, brain comes from previous two brains that come together and have sex. And then a baby is born. And then, there you go. There's the brain. If what you're saying is consciousness is brain and mind is the same as the brain, why are you using the term consciousness and brain? You're just saying a mechanical, biological object exists inside a skull. That's all you're saying. And if that's the case, how is it unique or different than any other mechanical, biological thing out there? It's just matter in motion. Watch.
To accurately depict the shape of the rock. If our thoughts about physical things were not caused by how those things actually are, then any accuracy our thoughts might have would be totally coincidental.
That was not 36, Meatball. I did 46. Yeah, but we can test to see if our evaluations are accurate, to which I would respond. Jason McGinney kicks off the next goal with, he said, quote, determined by the laws of physics and random. Yeah, as if those are opposites. He has no access to random, Jason, right? Isn't testing just another effect determined by physics and chemistry?
I would hope so. Otherwise, there'd be no reason to trust it.
Unbelievable, this guy. No, that's a reason not to trust it, doofus. If testing, the act of testing your evaluations against reality, if the act of testing your evaluations against reality is itself completely determined, you can't trust it. Because whatever conclusion you come to is just another chemical reaction. So how could a chemical reaction be wrong? It's unbelievable. The arrogance and stupidity of these types of people who hold this philosophy is actually horrifying. How separate from God they actually are.
The results of a test were not deterministic, then there's no reason to expect it to give us...
The awareness you are talking about would come from your brain. Why is this so hard to understand? Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying to Chad. If that were true, there's no distinction between awareness and a physical thing called the brain. Do you understand the problem? Why refer to awareness at all if it's just... Awareness assumes there's a type of knower that's observing brain inputs or a phenomenon or visions or sounds or anything, even in your mind's eye what you're thinking of. But if the case is, from a naturalistic view, that thing is itself the brain, then there is no knower of the brain. There is no knower of the thoughts. There is no evaluator. There is just effect. Watch. If he goes on forever, the dominoes will explain the problem.
Any information about the phenomena we're testing.
So we have a determined effect of physics. We call it Lascara, also a good distinction here, which I haven't really gone into, but the inquiry of awareness versus consciousness. Maybe those aren't the same exact things. Maybe you could say some type of marmot has some type of awareness, and maybe it's not, you wouldn't grant it like the concept of full consciousness, or vice versa. Maybe awareness, maybe consciousness is just this mode of interacting with inputs but not fully evaluating them, and awareness would be further evaluation of the inputs. But watch the dominoes. Watch, this is better visualizes it. An evaluation followed by another determined effect of physics. So we have a determined effect of physics we call an evaluation, followed by another determined effect of physics we call a description, followed by another determined effect of physics called testing, which requires more effects. Chad, you're not watching. You're trying to refute and think. I need you to watch, because if you're going to try to ask me questions and be like, I'm truly trying to understand, but you're constantly chatting, it tells me you're not actually trying to grasp the position here. So please.
To give us any information about the...
Thank you, Rattlesnake. Shout out to all the Rattlesnake people coming over here. Appreciate you all. Thanks for the raid. Appreciate you, buddy. I hope I see you. Are you going to be in Nashville?
The phenomena we're testing.
So we have a determined effect of physics we call an evaluation. Ready? Watch. Followed by another determined effect of physics we call a description, followed by another determined effect of physics called testing, which requires more effects, more effects, more effects, and on. Now he's just going to be like, oh, this isn't a problem. I think I found my new background for my live stream. You know what I mean? Weed out the people who have epileptic fits. Sorry. Don't need ya. Off. Rated, thank you so much for the raid. I really appreciate it. So, for those of you just coming in, this is an old video I did against the materialist view, which would reduce all thinking to chemical reactions. Of course, the view chemical reactions could be right or wrong is absurd. Imagine coming to a debate. Can you imagine I debated Jake Rattlesnake sometime about like some view, and we both held the view that all of our thoughts and evaluations and conclusions, our entire philosophy was a chemical reaction, and we actually have the nerve and the arrogance and stupidity to come to a podium with a microphone and debate which chemical reactions are true or false. Can you imagine that was chemistry in high school? Teacher's like, yeah, we're going to develop the chemical reaction between the sodium sulfide and the other thing. Be careful, wear your goggles. And then she asks the class, okay, class, I'm glad you all got to experience that. Can you tell me who had a true reaction? Who here had a true reaction? Everyone's like, what the is Mrs. Anderson talking about? Yeah, ma'am, I think I had a true reaction, but Carl, he's such a jerk. Look at his fake chemical reaction. He's totally false. I mean, this is the kind of insanity that a materialist, a physicalist, a naturalist has to hold to if they're consistent. My chemical reaction would destroy your chemical reaction. Right. Right. I mean, if it was all chemical reactions, in a sense, if you could take a Darwinian approach and be like, the philosophy with the best chemical reaction, if there was a chemical reaction that consumed physically all other chemical reactions, then it would be a superior chemical reaction. Now, from this view, isn't the post-diction narrative of history from a naturalist position is that Mao Zedong was a chemical reaction that consumed other chemical reactions? Little Mr. Mean Mustache? I want you to be a painter. Chemical reaction. A mean one. Imagine saying there's an immoral chemical reaction. Forget about true for a second. Truth and morality go hand in hand here. Imagine saying a chemical reaction is immoral. Yeah, so what's the problem? Well, the problem is it's a vicious circle.
Is it a vicious circle to say that the physical shape of an indentation in some mud is an accurate reproduction of the physical shape of the rock that created that indentation?
Yes, because what's in question, TMM, you absolute fucking idiot, is that the evaluation of the mud indentation is what's in question. Whether or not there is an accurate indentation of the mud requires your mind, you putz. What are you, some sort of lunchbox collector? What do you, go to camp even though you're 32? What do you go to Disney World? I bet this guy goes to Disney World. This is a fundamental failure, and I'm seeing it in my own chat here. Failure to understand the problem here. Yes, it's circular. Yes, you're in a cycle of cause and effect. That's what I mean. It's not even circular from a argumentative position. I don't even grant you argumentation. Guess what? Under the materialist view, argumentation would also be a physical phenomenon that's caused by chemistry. Thank you, Gorilla Biscuits.
Indentation.
And this is where I gift you the fatal argument against this position. What a cocky prick this guy is. Look at him. Jimbob of the past, a year ago or so, a year and a half ago, you are such a smug little prick. Premise 1. Effects of physics are neither more true or false than any other effects of physics. Okay, hold on. Before I get his nonsensical response to this, I want to just tell you that I've updated this, okay? This was not well thought out, to be honest. It works enough, but it's not. I shouldn't grant them effects of physics, honestly. I should not grant them effects of physics. That's giving them way too much. So what I learned through some coaching and people kind of looking this over and being like, well, you could improve this this way. And premise one should really be events themselves are not true or false. Events, pure events in the world. Doesn't matter if you call them effects of physics. You know, just pure events in the world are not true or false. Simple, not wordy. I was too wordy here. This is L's in chat. Too wordy. Wordy loser. You're a wordy loser. Stop being so wordy. You know what I mean? Be simple. Be more like Charlie Kirk. Less wordy. All right. So, anyway, let him respond. Here the other effects of physics.
False premise. You never
Really?
even demonstrated that premise.
I've demonstrated the premise. There's no such thing as a true volcano. There's no true blade of grass. There's not a false blade of grass. Everything, here's how I'll demonstrate this premise is true. It's impossible to look at any event out in the world as it is without describing the event itself. Like we're not talking about the propositions of the thing. There's no true car accident. Okay? That's an event. Events just happen. They're just happening. There's no propositions are required for truth happiness. Propositions. Events occur. They're just occurrences. So
You just said that tornadoes and grass have no truth values and inferred, fallaciously, that no physical phenomena can have truth values.
no, I didn't say that. I said if it's true that physical events are not truth apt and evaluations and propositions are purely physical events, then it would be true. Now, if you deny premise one, you're going to have to give me a counterexample. You know what I mean? You're going to have to give me a counterexample of something out there in nature that is truth apt. And guess what? This has been a year plus where this video's been up that I made. Notice how much I've matured since, at least visually, not mentally. And still, not a single counterexample. Not a single counterexample. Premise two. Thoughts, evaluations, and propositions are effects of physics. Conclusion. Evaluations and propositions are not more true or false than other evaluations and propositions. They just are. You see, the consequence of this position is fatal to knowledge itself. If any knowledge claim or belief is just an effect of physics, and what we call knowledge is dependent on truth or falsity of a claim, then knowledge is impossible, because evaluations and claims are just effects. Stop of crying, physics, Jimbob. Effects are neither true or false. They just are.
Effects.
Stop crying, Jimbob. Gorilla Biscuits, thank you for the membership.
Of physics can, in ways that I've already illustrated, be
No, not ways. No, this is the problem. I'll let him talk.
true or false. For example, some indentations in mud created by rocks will be more or less accurate reproductions of the shapes of the
No,
rock.
that's great. Dude, how many times are you going to do this, retard? I mean, retard. You grant yourself the evaluation of the mud, the rock in the mud. Dude, I didn't grant you the evaluation of it. I didn't grant you that, fool. I didn't grant you that shit.
Rocks that created them based on things like the purity and viscosity of the mud. Thoughts about things can vary in accuracy based on the quality of the data we collect through our senses, what our perceptual biases are, etc. These are
Oh my God.
all physical phenomena.
The position. Earth says, I know not every question gets an answer, but I'm praying it's reflection, not pride. Grace covers it either way. I don't know what any of that means, Earth. Why don't you write a poetry book? I'll help you sell it. It gets worse. If all of our thoughts, actions, and beliefs are effects determined by the law. What about the rock in the mud? We need AI. Are you actually an AI? Or are you a person? Laws of physics. Then a Christian belief and an atheist. Oh, listen to this part. This is my favorite conclusion about this. Taps shoulder. Taps shoulder. asks for donations, taps shoulder. L's in the chat for this gay beer.
And beliefs are effects determined by the laws of physics, then a Christian belief and an atheist
What I said is if beliefs themselves are effects of physics, then
belief and any other worldview is just an effect of physics. Saying a Christian has a false belief is equivalent to saying they have a false effect of physics.
Yes.
shout out to my comic, bro.
They have a false.
I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm a comic maker. A lot of people don't realize this. I have a volume of 5 awesome comic books, 2 of which are sold out. 1 and 2, you can't get them. But 3, 4, and 5 are available at MadeByJimbob. So if you like, there's aggressive savagery comics. There's more developed, nuanced philosophical comments like this one. If you like this kind of stuff and you like to giggle while you're pooping, go to MadeByJimbob.com and get 3, 4, and 5 or one of them. You can't get 1 or 2. They're totally sold out. But these comics are great. Shout out in the chat who has my comic books. They can attest that these are worthwhile books to keep around your coffee table or your toilet or your office to read and giggle about, okay? I just forget to tell people that because they think, oh, this guy's a talking head, which I am. But I also make things like this, and I forget to shill them. As Andrew Wilson would say, Jimbob, you're one of the best performers. One of the best performers I've ever seen on YouTube. But you are god-awful. You're really bad at shilling yourself. Terrible at the grift. Gotta teach you the grift. So here I am, doing it better. Go to MadeByJimbob.com. Let's get some book sales. Populate them in your homes. Nashville, here we come. Thank you so much. Cade Shaw, $10. Wouldn't you have to physically flip the rock over to prove? Yes, that's a good point, Cade. That's a good point. But further, you'd have to flip it over and look at it, and you'd have to grant yourself there's this other thing that's separate from the rock and physical things. Evaluating and going, look at the rock, look at the imprint. The imprint looks like the rock.
Effect of physics.
Yes. It's just like saying that a rock that falls into some mud with enough viscosity to capture and hold the rock's shape is going to make an indentation that more accurately reproduces that shape than if
that requires evaluation. Oh my
a rock falls into some mud that's too watery to hold the shape or too viscous for the rock to make much of a dent.
How can we believe anything other than which is strictly determined by the laws of physics? How can an effect of physics be false?
I just explained how. Some effects more faithfully reproduce certain causes than others.
Dude, that's an evaluation. This guy's in a loop. He's in a loop of insanity, man. This is insanity. I just told you, the thing happens, and then the thing you're putting into question, which is my evaluation, I get to use that, right? And then look at stuff and talk about it. When was this guy's bar mitzvah?
Well, the atheist might say, well, some effects of physics can be true and some can be false. Okay, so if one effect of physics can be true or false, here's my challenge to the atheist who holds this position. What is the categorical difference between a tornado and thinking?
Tell me. Watch this. When I ask someone this, if they're all in the same category, what's categorically different? It has to be a physical, not a capability. You can't just say it's capable. It's, thinking's truth apt. It's capable of being truth apt. No. You have to tell me physically what's different about thinking that makes it truth apt. You can't say capability. Watch how this isn't answered.
Thinking is a physical process that forms models of data collected from other physical physical.
Idiot, you idiot. Thinking is, let me translate this in his own language, his own worldview language. Thinking is a physical process. That physical process, physical things of physical data. Okay, hold on. Let me read it his way, and I'll show you where I swap out the things here. Thinking is a physical process that forms models of data collected from other physical phenomenon, while tornadoes does not. Let me transpose this. Let me use my little translator, okay? From his view, it should sound like this. Physical process is a physical process. That physical process, physical, of physical process. Do you guys need to, here, let me do it with the, let me do it with this. You see the, let's do it again. Physical process is a physical process that physical process from other physical phenomenon like a physical process that physical process. Sound reasonable?
While a tornado does not.
Well, they might say, we need, AI says, a dust storm is caused by wind and dust. Wow, that's really deep. That's really deep. We need AI. How is that relevant at all to what the hell I'm talking about? Hey, duh, a tornado isn't doing any evaluating. Well, let's try again. What is the difference between a tornado and evaluating? Well, like the difference is like complexity and stuff.
No, complexity has nothing to do with it.
Okay, let's look at the level of complexity. What is the difference between an extremely complex machine and a very simple machine, other than potential? How about me drawing a calculator so good? I mean, can we get a little, can we hype me a little bit? I mean, that's a really good calculator, except for the symbols. Potentially more components executing a wider variety of functions. The complex and the simple are both at the effect of physical laws. And as far as we know, a computer doesn't do anything more than what it's programmed to do, regardless of its complexity.
That's not true. If computers only ever did what
really, that's not true?
they were programmed to do, then things like bit flips would never happen.
What? So if a computer only did what it was programmed to do, then mistakes wouldn't happen? Wow, buddy. The computer doesn't suddenly transcend its category of being a machine simply because it's more complex. That is a good calculator, thank you. So why would the brain from this position?
It wouldn't. The brain is also a machine.
That's the end of your entire epistemic system, TMM. You weak, anonymous troll. Sick calculator, dude. Thank you. I know. I never thought I'd get tips from drawing a calculator. I should start a thing, you know what I mean? Like a little segment where Jimbob draws a this, and I just draw it, and then you guys either reward me or totally wreck me in the chat. I'll draw it live, though. I'll do it live. I'll do it live!
The fact that the brain works deterministically is what allows its thoughts about physical objects, insofar as they are correct, to be more than...
Listen to what he's saying again. He really is this retarded. Now keep in mind, thoughts are physical objects. Maybe that's what Chad's not understanding in the chat. Do you understand from this view that thoughts are physical objects under this view? So watch the sentence. The fact, another physical object, that the brain works deterministically is what allows its physical objects, thoughts, about physical objects. Now, does that make sense? You notice how he borrows the word thought as if it's not a physical object? You know why? Because if he was consistent, the sentence would be, well, the fact that the brain works deterministically is what allows its physical objects about physical objects, insofar as they are physical objects. Because you sound retarded. If you were consistent, you would sound actually retarded or manic or something like that warrants like you being locked away in a rubber room. I need that calculator as a sticker. Yeah. I should write just like boobs on it or something. That would be a good sticker.
merely coincidentally.
It smells so good.
Correct. If our thoughts about things are not causally determined by anything, then there is no connection between thoughts and their reference, and any accuracy those thoughts may have would be purely coincidental.
Unbelievably retarded. Look at that picture of Charlie Kirk, though. Am I right or am I right? Woo! Boy, he's having a rough day.